On this episode of 10-8, we'll be joined by Victims Advocate Rachel Vincent and Deputy Shirley Lindstadt from the St. Louis County Sheriff's Office Crime Prevention Unit. Don't go away. 10-8 starts right now. Hello and welcome to today's episode of 10-8. I'm your host, Major Brian Hester, and with us today we have Rachel Vincent, who is one of our victims advocates at the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So let's talk a little bit about the Victims Advocate Program, and maybe we start with a little background on what victims advocates do and what they do for the Sheriff's Office so our viewers understand exactly what a victims advocate is.
Law enforcement victim advocates are a little bit different than the victim advocates around the county. We specifically respond to calls through the Sheriff's Office most often. So whether it's a homicide, suicide, burglary, robbery, traumatic situation that we would get calls to is what we normally respond to.
Right. Now, when you guys get called to these situations, you are specifically there for the victims and their families, and it could really be any situation that a deputy goes out on a call, or, and we'll get to this in a minute, but it's not always that calls that deputies go to. Sometimes deputies find families that are in need of services, and you guys are sort of the liaison, but we'll get to that in a minute. But when you guys get these calls, what kind of services do you help provide to the victims? What are they in need of generally?
So, as you know, every situation is different. When we respond, it's not always victims that are there. It might be the neighborhood kids standing around. It might be people who were just in the vicinity of the area when the call came out, and they might be traumatized by what they saw, depending on what it is. So, we're there to kind of let the public know, and whoever the victims' families or family members or whoever is in that area, we're there to either respond and remove whoever's in that situation, or just to kind of give them an update and be the liaison between the detectives and the families or whoever's in that area. They want to know what's going on at that time, what's going to be happening, and just depending on, what the situation is. Say it's a homicide. Our job is to go in and kind of provide some crisis intervention, call family members that are in the area to kind of come, let them know what has happened so they can assist their family or whoever is involved in the situation. From there, we do victims compensation. The state of Florida has a victims compensation program. So whether it's mental health, whether it's funeral burial, whether it's property loss, wage loss, just depending on what the situation is, we can go from there. If it's referrals and resources that they need, information, bereavement counseling, food from the food bank, every situation is different, so we kind of just go from that point and make our calls as we go on.
Okay, great. And I think you really described it well there, in that you guys, so the deputies on the scene, they can do their job. They can conduct the investigation. They can collect evidence. They can do all the things that law enforcement officers are required to do, even in those traumatic scenes that, and incidents that we respond to. And you guys are there for victims, families, witnesses, bystanders, to be that sort of help with all the other things that are going on in their lives at that point. And I like what you were alluding to with the counseling. I've even, I can remember on when I was a lieutenant on patrol, and you guys came out to scenes and dealt with families at hospitals after traumatic situations. And it was always nice to be able to call you guys, have you there on scene, to where we could focus on getting the job done, and you guys really took care of the family and made them feel at ease and provided them with resources. So I think that's really good for our viewers. Now, how long has this program been in existence with the Sheriff's Office?
So Victim Services started in the early 1990s. They started with one advocate, then there was two, then there was three. We now have 4 advocates. And it's awesome because 2 of our advocates are Spanish speakers, and our other advocate Solange Dorsonville is she speaks Creole, so we can kind of cover all the bases if there's not somebody there to interpret. So it's really helpful when it comes to filling out the forms that are difficult, such as victims' compensation. We also help with other court documents, protection orders, injunctions, and then we also do court accompaniment. So it really comes into play when you have only a Creole-speaking victim and they need that, or a Spanish-speaking victim, and they're trying to fill out paperwork that's all in English. So we really have all the bases covered in that sense.
And we call you guys a victim's advocate, but you don't necessarily have to be a victim to take advantage of the resources that you guys provide through the Sheriff's Office. And I think that's important for our viewers as well, because there are ways that people can reach out to you because you're a great liaison to the community as well. You spoke of the United Way and Safe Space and other things. So deputies don't have to respond to a call, and the people that take advantage of your services don't have to be victims, correct? Not
at all. We help anyone in the community that needs assistance or is looking for a resource or a referral. We try to stay up to date on what's going on in the county. And so, we've had deputies call and they stop out with a car who, there's a single mom living with her kids in the car. She might be on, in tough times, or just hit a bump in the road. And is it food that she needs? Is it shelter that she needs? We can, not always do we have the answers, but almost 95% of the time we can get them placed in some sort of shelter, or go, run out to Treasure Coast Food Bank and get a family of 5 food and household essentials if that's what they need, and deliver it to someone who's in need. School resource calls us all the time. Hey, I got a kid who's wearing, 2 sizes too small shoes or shorts or whatever the case may be, and we'll send a referral over to Hope's Closet, or go there and shop for that child if we know what size they are. We work with the fire department has helped us out with shoes in the past. So there's always, if there's I say this all the time, if there's a will, there's a way. We'll figure it out. So the deputies can always give us a call, or any community member, anyone that's living in St. Lucie County can always call, and we'll try to figure it out with them.
That's fantastic, and I think it's great that the Sheriff Mascara, and the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office have the Victims Advocate program in place. And I've seen you guys, the wonderful things that you guys do. We appreciate your work. Real quick, if we have someone in the community who's watching this and they want to contact our Victims Advocate, how would they go about doing that?
So you can call the Sheriff's Office, 772-462-7300, and Natalie will get you in touch with us, or you can call the Criminal Investigations Department directly, 772-462-3230, and they'll patch you over to one of us, and we can go from there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
with us today, and answering the question and providing our viewers at home a little information about what Victims Advocates do. And thank you again.
Thanks.
Don't go away. When we return, we will talk with Deputy Shirley Lindstedt about some of our new crime prevention programs. Welcome back. I'm your host, Major Brian Hester, and with us now we have Deputy Shirley Lindstedt with our Crime Prevention Unit at the Sheriff's Office. Shirley is going to talk to us a little bit about our iWatch program. So, Shirley, would you kind of tell our viewers at home what iWatch is and what that program does?
Okay. Well, our iWatch is basically a program where we are collaborating with people, community members that have private video cameras, preferably outdoors, because those are really the ones that we're going to need to access the most. But it is a platform where we're partnering with people who want to be a part of the crime fighting community, and they register their cameras with us. The only requirement is that they actually save the data, so it has to go to some type of a hard drive so that it can be reviewed afterwards. It can't, as soon as it happens, be live and then not be available to view. They register on our line, which is very user-friendly on our website. And basically what that does is it gives us a database from which to pull should we have a crime in a particular area, geographic area. We can go to that database, identify who has registered with outdoor cameras, and then we go to them and let them know that on certain dates and certain times that they could please view their cameras, and if they see anything suspicious that they could share with us, then they can do that at that time, and then we would come and view things. What the program is not is it is not a program that allows us to remote into people's cameras and spy on people. That is not how this is designed at all. It's just them letting us know, hey, we have cameras and we're willing to help if there's a crime in our area that we can help with.
And I think that's important for our viewers at home, is that that's all this program really does, is tell law enforcement, and specifically the sheriff's office in this case, that, hey, I've got cameras, and if there's anything that happens in my community, it potentially could be caught on camera, and that could be from a vehicle going by and us getting a tag number. And,
absolutely. It could be as simple as somebody walking through a yard to victimize their neighbors, or 3 or 6 houses down, so you just never know what a camera is going to capture.
And you know, the only way for law enforcement to know that is for people to really register with us. I think what it helps too, and you can maybe clarify this, but we do, as a detective, our agency would go out and they would, you know, canvass the neighborhood and ask if people had video cameras. But sometimes in these cases, time is of the essence, correct?
Absolutely. This is definitely a more efficient way to enforce the laws and prevent crime.
So when that call comes in, you know, 2 hours later or 3 hours later, whatever, we can immediately go and obtain that video and potentially be able to identify a suspect.
Absolutely.
So that's
absolutely.
great. Now, we have a couple of partnerships in this program, or at least one partnership with Ring Cameras. Is that correct?
It is correct. Ring has been very generous, and they are very motivated to be a part of the crime fighting for the community and for the country, I think, as a whole. They have donated a number of cameras that we are able to utilize with people in the community that might need them. We are using them mainly right now just where we find a need for it, if we have a high crime area, something that we could utilize these cameras for. But they themselves have a platform that once you have a Ring camera, whether you've obtained one through us, a limited supply, or you order one through them, that you can register online and kind of make a neighborhood network, if you will. If you see something on your camera that you feel was suspicious or maybe people need to know about, where we see it happening a lot is a lot of the package thefts that are happening at people's front doors. UPS is delivering and somebody will come along and steal the package. You can upload that data directly to that little network that you've registered with that is all facilitated by Ring, and it's a wonderful way to communicate to a plethora of people very quickly. As to before, you know, you might tell your immediate neighbors, but so many more people would never hear about it. So it's a wonderful program as well.
That's great. And again, following that up, you don't necessarily have to have a Ring camera to be part of the iWatch program. Any camera, as you said in the beginning,
Absolutely.
that records to some sort of a DVR device or to a cloud system as well, as long as we can access that data to come back, correct?
Well, as long as they can access it and then share that with us.
Sorry,
so
that's that
no worries.
confidentiality part that we talked about.
Absolutely.
So you're right, we don't have access to that unless they give us permission or give it to us
Exactly.
so we go out and view it.
Exactly.
And I know, you know, and I'll just share a personal story that I had theft of a package, or theft of mail rather, and they tried to open up a credit card in my name down south. And immediately I went out and purchased the cameras for my house, you know, and they're really inexpensive, no matter what brand that you pick or choose, and pretty easy to install as well. So since then I've felt much safer. But is there anything else that we need to communicate about that program to our viewers that you can think of from a crime prevention standpoint?
Well, if you do register, we will then come out and give you a little sticker that you will display on the outside of your home, because that way if there are actually law enforcement officers in the neighborhood, not at a database, you know, at a computer, they can actually see the sticker and know that you are also a participating member of the iWatch program. So basically just spread the word, and if you have the camera, like you said, they are becoming so much more affordable that more and more homes are having them. Then register with us so that you can be part of that crime prevention process.
And do you know how many of our residents in our county are participating in the program currently? Any idea?
I don't have a total number. I just do know that it is starting to pick up now that we're getting a little bit more into the media and they're becoming more aware of it. Awareness is key here, so hopefully this will help as well.
Great. Well, thank you for the information
welcome.
on iWatch, and I think it's very useful. I think it's part of the technology and our changing culture, and
Absolutely.
It's really a great tool for us. And the thefts and the burglaries and in the neighborhood, some of that crime, it really gives us a great tool
Absolutely.
to be able to identify a suspect and solve those crimes, whereas in the past, you know, unless we caught them in the act, it was really tough to catch them.
It definitely helps, and you don't have to be tech savvy, so it is definitely for a lot of the community members.
That's really true, because I am not tech savvy, so
Nor am I.
if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Shirley. And when
You're
we
welcome.
come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other crime prevention programs and some scam information I think you're going to give.
A little bit.
So thank you. And we'll be back in just a minute, and we'll talk to Deputy Lindstedt a little bit more about some crime prevention programs and about scams that are going on in our community. Welcome back. I'm your host, Major Brian Hester, and we're back with Deputy Shirley Lindstedt of our Crime Prevention Unit. Welcome back, and thank you.
Thank you.
So, when we left the last segment, we discussed that we were going to have you talk a little bit about current scams and trends in our community, which is one of the things that the Crime Prevention Unit was actually originally designed to sort of combat in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So tell our viewers what the latest is on the scams.
Well, I will tell you, it's sad that we have to sit here to be talking about this because it is so prevalent and it's a huge annoyance to the community. But we have, with technology, the internet and just a lot of technology, we have a lot more phone scams happening now. There's the age-old IRS scam and then the grandparent scam, and there's just a number of them. I could probably go off and rattle off at least 10 that people would all say, oh, you know, I've experienced that. I have a department-issued cell phone, and I get scam calls about how the IRS has issued a warrant for my arrest, and I
Yes.
better go pay my taxes. It's really kind of comical, but for some people it becomes a nightmare because some people actually fall for the scam and then they get bamboozled out of money, which is very unfortunate. Because there are so many scams, basically what we are trying to do is just raise awareness, because as a lot of people may or may not know, a lot of these scams are originating from outside the continental U.S., so it makes it difficult for us to do any type of enforcement action. If you happen to be scammed by someone and you lose money because you've sent them money, then we come out and we document it with a report, but the recovery of that money is not very probable. So we're trying to do our best and invest time and money into raising the awareness on these scams. People call into us and we basically take down the information of where the scam is coming from, and then we communicate that information to the Federal Trade Commission, which is the federal arm that is actually looking into these types of incidents. Again, though, we just encourage people that if you don't recognize the number on your phone, and it's going to look like a local number, and that's a process called spoofing. They use the internet and they input any number that they want, and they just randomly pick numbers, preferably ones in your area code, so that kind of gives it some credibility and
Right,
hopes
right.
that you will then pick up the phone. But it's really, the way we're going to combat this is just raising the awareness for our community members so that they don't fall for it.
Very good. And I think that's really what's important. Every time I go with you guys to a homeowners meeting or any other community organization, those comments and questions come up as, hey, I'm getting this call, what do I do? And I think the message that we want to communicate to our viewers is, if you don't know the person and they're asking you for money or asking you for something that is out of the norm, then what? Don't do it, or call us and let us look into it for them. What would you like our viewers to know?
Well, a lot of it is going to have to fall onto common sense. The problem is that we have overlapping generations where we have tech-savvy generation with not-so-tech-savvy generation. So when you ask for an elderly member of our community to pay their taxes using an iTunes card, some of them are actually okay with it because they don't know that an iTunes card is never going to be used to pay your taxes. So we have a little bit of a void there, if you will, where technology is against some people but on the side of other people. We're going to grow out of that as we progress, but just know that the IRS is never going to ask you to pay your taxes using an iTunes card. Right. Social Security seems to be a big one right now, where they're calling and making threats of canceling people's Social Security cards unless they go and purchase some type of a Green Dot card or something, put money on it, and then call them and give them the number that is on the back of that card. It's just important for all of our community members to know that if something doesn't feel right, then take a second and reach out to someone who might be able to help you. Law enforcement is a perfect arm to reach out to and ask those questions of. We'll make sure that you know that no, you're not to go get iTunes card. Now, we have gone to several stores and we've tried to partner with stores like Walmart and other stores where they actually train their cashiers when people are checking out and they see an elderly person or just somebody coming and they've got something doesn't look right, an elderly person purchasing 5 iTunes cards or putting $5,000 onto an iTunes card or something of that nature. We do try to partner with stores so that they intervene at that point and maybe try to give advice. But I will also tell you that I've been standing behind somebody in line and I've seen a cashier try to do that with someone and they've just brushed that cashier off. So, at some point we're going to have to expect people to try to help themselves. But at the same time, we're also trying to raise awareness for them so that they can make some informed decisions.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a really unique approach to trying to, provide information to the potential victims by reaching out to the stores to do their education. And I think that's responsibility on the store's part if they take advantage of that. As a consumer, I would be very appreciative if that were my mother or father. Or,
some stores have been helpful and other stores have not wanted anything to do with it. So it's unfortunate, but we're still chipping away at it.
We all band together to stop this because, these aren't people in our community that are pulling these scams. These people are generally overseas somewhere, which makes them almost untouchable to us. And we've all been victim of some sort, or know somebody that's been a victim or had someone try to pull this scam. I get 3 to 4 calls a day from numbers that are local, and there won't be anybody on the other end or so forth. And when you call it back, you get someone and they're like, I didn't call you. So their numbers being spoofed is what's happening.
Yes, and it's technology being used against us. But like I said, by raising the awareness and just informing people so that they can make good decisions for themselves, that's the only way that we're going to really combat this, because it's not like we can go to the other country and say, stop making these calls. That's just not going to happen. We can barely do that within our own country. But it is definitely something that we have to band together. And it's heartbreaking when you have somebody who is retired and elderly and frail, doesn't have any family around, and they've just, sent some of their retirement funds, what they were living off of, away to someone who they'll never see that money again. So that is very heartbreaking.
I think the message we want to get across today is, investigate a little bit before you go and send money to someone. Ask for help.
Do your due diligence.
Exactly.
Ask questions, and if it doesn't feel right, then
don't do it.
Trust your instincts here.
Exactly.
And if you don't recognize the numbers, if it's important enough, they will leave a message. And some of these scammers are leaving messages, but they're already, you can almost hear in the message that this is somewhat of a scam. So call law enforcement, have them listen to the recording, and see if that's a scam.
Great. Thank you for the information,
You're very
Shirley.
welcome.
And we appreciate you being here and providing that information to our viewers.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. On behalf of Sheriff Ken Mascara and the men and women of the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, thank you for making us part of your day. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.